You can say that. I wouldn't say that about my songs, but...
I deeply apologize. It won't happen again.
Hi, Mom.
Jammer, Tanny.
And I didn't actually, be honest, I didn't really catch the vision until we pulled out the wigs and the spandex. It's your podcast. If you really want us to do that.
Not really.
I think right in there is the difference in the music industry in the U.S. versus what I've experienced in South Africa. Oh, next on the radio, it's Andrew Jed playing a song for you.
You're listening to the Baascast. Yeah, it is better than it sounds.
Welcome back to the Baascast. I am Baas de Beer and you are freakishly amazing. I love you more than I love Biltong, which is a lot. Right, formal introduction. Welcome. Hi, Andrew Jed,
Yes.
Brother Jed,
Yes.
Jedi the Nedi. I don't know what that is.
No, but it's cool.
Why, are you famous? No, okay, let me make it easier for you. Just give me a quick introduction for the 7 people that's watching that don't know you yet, because obviously the 700 others do.
Yes, obviously they do. I am a musician, songwriter, producer, the whole kind of range, which is really what a lot of artists are doing today, songwriter. But over the years, I've learned how to produce records and do my own stuff. So as a result, I'm in my studio working all the time, writing new material. And then a lot of stuff that people find interesting is historically, over the years, in my music, I've kind of fallen in the world of licensing my songs for use in film and television and ads and things like that.
Well, wearing so many different hats, what would you say is thank you. Nice hat though, it really reflects who you are. If you're not watching the video, just give a quick glimpse at the video because he's wearing this seriously reflective hat. I'll be surprised if you don't literally just shine into the camera.
Well, I did have a sponsor at one point, and then I didn't like what they were doing in the sweatshops over in Southeast Asia. And that's not true. I just thought it'd be cool to put a piece of tape. It's actually Imperial Cerveza hat. But I just thought.
Do they have sweatshops in Yes?
No, they don't actually.
Okay, please don't sue us. That was a joke.
No, it's a great beer in Costa Rica.
Oh, cool.
High recommendation.
So, speaking of beer, what are you most, renowned for in the sense? What do you see yourself as first? Producer, songwriter, singer, studio guy?
Love that question. At the end of the day, probably songwriter. And it shifts and goes in different phases over the years. And I wouldn't have said that necessarily 15 years ago.
Okay.
But as I feel like I've grown and evolved as an artist, first and foremost, I would see myself as a songwriter. But I think second to that, a producer, like a record producer. I think my writing songs and my arranging songs has really, and the way I do it, we're actually sitting in my studio, the way I do it has forced me into almost becoming, thinking about songs the way a record producer thinks about songs as well. So songwriter initially with the instrumentation and then a producer and
okay.
2 answers.
And do you do other people's recordings and productions as well? Or
I do. I'll have people in here or I'll even work remote. I mixed a record for an artist in Finland, I think, just from here in the studio in South Africa. And so all kinds of other things where I'll go into a studio and kind of be a producer's ears for an artist as they're working on material and recording their records.
And we will definitely be getting to Air Force One. Oh. Just so you know.
Okay, that's cool.
Because, it is one of the coolest things that I think you've ever done in your life.
Okay.
I was just saying it's really cool. And I don't know much about the rest of your life, so I assume.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll convince you that the rest of my life has been okay.
Now, listen, in prep for this chat with you, I've been listening to a lot of your shit on Spotify, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, firstly, the progression in your music has been fun in the sense that your older stuff on Spotify almost seems more tame and, dare I say, a little less country. Well, not less country.
You dare say it. That's
everything's fine. Country, but a little bit less hillbilly.
I'll give you that.
And you go, is it a conscious decision that your latest recordings and your latest releases are a little bit more, shall we say, what do you call that? Hillbilly hoedown, hillbilly hill down, something like that?
You can say that. I wouldn't say that about my songs, but you can say whatever the heck you want.
It sounds happy and dancey and shit, and more what I would call in my South African limited version of a brain, country.
Yeah.
Whereas the previous stuff was more adult contemporary indie pop rock.
Sure, you can say that. Absolutely. Do you want me to go down to my history of?
In fact, let's do. You moved from the States in what year?
oh gosh, well, I've lived here in South Africa twice. And I don't know if you have an international audience that's listening to you.
After yours, hopefully.
Hopefully, well, you will actually, because there's a few people that know me in Ireland. Anyway, which is true. So yes, I moved here for the first time in 2013, and moved away, did a couple things, came back just before, the end of the before times, and in 2019, and yeah, so I've been here since. So a lot of the way, you know how I mentioned earlier, like up until 15 years ago or so, I wouldn't have really thought of myself so much as the songwriter.
Yeah.
I played in bands. I spent time in LA really being the sideman. We're not sideman's sort of a negative term, but the utility guy, the auxiliary, the guy who plays every instrument on stage, and
For the main artist.
for the main artist.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that main artist was the band I was in, but I didn't put myself out there as the singer. I didn't put myself out there as the main songwriter. My focus was always on writing the hooks, writing, being a part of the songwriting process, which we can go into for sure. But so anyway, in my LA days, actually just prior to my LA days, I started to fall into this world that was kind of becoming the way the music industry was being run, where as an artist, as a songwriter, you'd write a song, you'd record it, and then somewhere along the way, that might end up on a TV show or an ad or a video game, Or if you co-write a song, my first experience I co-wrote with a couple fantastic, amazing artists, Katie Herzig and Jeremy Lister. Amazing artists that I've gotten to just be a part of their lives over the years. And I was on tour, and we were in Idaho, which is a state in the United States of America.
We know we're South African.
Yeah, you know where Idaho is?
I know that it exists.
You know that it exists. That's okay. We don't know that Limpopo exists, so it's all right.
Half your country doesn't know South Africa
That's
exists.
it. It's just in Africa, right?
At the southern bit.
At the
thank
southern bit. Anyway, so this was my first real experience with this, and we were on tour, we were hanging out, staying someplace, and we just kind of were sitting around with guitars and wrote some song called Idaho. See, creative masterminds. And I kind of even forgot I was in the room, basically. I never did anything with that song, but apparently Jeremy Lister recorded it at one point. I think Katie did too. And then I get an email one day, and it's like, hey, this is the music supervisor from ER, the show, and we need you to sign because we're licensing Idaho for one of our episodes.
Nice.
And so I was like, what? And so like a total artist, I super just didn't bother for a while, and they kind of kept coming back. They're like, no, we really need a license. You are one of 3 writers on the song, so we need to pay you. I was like, oh.
Why didn't you lead with that?
Lead with paying me.
Hi, we want to give you money.
Oh, musician money. Got it. So I got it, and I got my first sort of check for licensing that song on ER that I had forgotten I'd even been a part of. But because of the goodness of, artists, yeah, you were in the room, you wrote part of the chorus, you're a songwriter on the song, you get paid. And that was sort of my first foray into, music gets licensed. From that point forward, still, it wasn't on my radar, but it was a time when artists were getting launched. Their careers were getting launched because they ended up on a TV show, And it was kind of the mid-2000s. Do we call it 2000? What do we say?
Naughties?
Naughties.
Yeah.
Okay. It was my mid-naughty period. And so that, it was at that time. So I started thinking, okay, that's an interesting element. Usually you just hop in a van and tour the country and try to get people aware of you. Those 6 people at that bar in the middle of Idaho, you try to get them aware of you.
Writing a song with a state name in it really helps.
It's a very smart maneuver, by the way.
So
lesson to songwriters.
Bring out a song called Limpopo.
Okay, I will. I consider that a challenge. It's on. Anyway, so then this all goes basically to my Spotify journey. After a while, I got my hands on some recording software and started to learn how to record in my, bedroom, basically, on headphones. Just demos, ideas, and slowly kind of worked my way into that universe of licensing songs. Instead of being that, artist that was going to release record after record, that wasn't the purpose of going into the studio, was to release a record. It was just to record songs. Obviously, I have my own unique style. And at that time, so you go back, you said it was Tame or a hot AC or whatever, adult contemporary. What I ended up doing was I would release albums based on sort of a collection of, I'd written enough songs to be pitched for TV shows. Let's just release them. Otherwise, they're sitting on my hard drive and going out to music supervisors. So a lot of my albums over the years kind of feel a little disjointed, a little different, and a little bit rooted in whatever I was trying to write at the time that I thought would be relevant to getting on TV. Because who doesn't want to get on TV? I'm on a podcast, and I'm friggin' stoked.
I am so happy that it's this podcast that you're talking about.
No, I was talking about another one.
Man.
So anyway, at the time, kind of it was Jason Mrazzi, Jack Johnson. I did a heck of a lot of ukulele stuff and like stomps and claps and whistles and cute, quirky stuff that was really popular in LA at the time. And, it was really working. So over time, you'll see an evolution of what I was trying to do. Now, currently, I am a multi-instrumentalist, right? So I play guitars, I play banjo, I play mandolin, I play bass in Air Force One, which you really want to talk about at some point. Air Force One. Yes. And so the guys in Air Force One will appreciate that we're even talking about it. And so I think during the pandemic, when you're sort of stuck at home, I think a lot of us got a little bit nostalgic, maybe for sort of the life that was comfortable and that we knew prior to everything just going into chaos. And for me, part of that was just really remembering the time that I lived in Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains, outdoor festival music, and part of the scene that I fell into, which actually inspired my journey into music. The true inspiration of my journey into music was Pearl Jam when 10 came out. But as an artist playing live, it was a lot of those music festivals, outdoor mountain music kind of stuff, where bands were being full bands, but playing with banjos and mandolins and stuff, and songs were fun. You have a lot of these jammy type bands, which is not a genre in South Africa.
Jammy type bands. Yeah. There's very few.
Yeah, jam band is a concept when we can get into that later when we talk
Absolutely.
about the shirt that I'm wearing and some of the records that I find most fun and enjoyable. And so I just started going down this road. I was reading a lot during the pandemic, and I really got into like these westerns for some reason. I think it was a nostalgia feel. And so that highly influenced when I would come in here to my studio, which is in my house, which is what all artists do nowadays.
Which is where we're recording.
Where we're recording in a studio, in a house. And I just started coming out with these songs that were much more in that Western sort of storytelling. I was enjoying playing a lot of banjo and mandolin specifically. And so I kind of fell down into this hole, a good hole.
Jumped into the hole.
Jumped into the hole of kind of the current style that I'm doing, which to be honest, because I like being honest,
I prefer that you're honest.
Is not the trend right now for licensing songs in ads. Nobody's out there looking for a bluegrass tune, unless you're on Yellowstone and then you want gritty and dark. But you know what? That's freaking great. That's okay because I can write what I want to write.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting to hear that you essentially let the instruments of the moment that you enjoy playing most dictate the sound that your album's going to have.
100%. And I found out that voice actually worked for me. And when I say voice, I don't mean just like my singing voice, although that too, I felt like I kind of came into my own with my singing voice. But just the voice of like this storytelling. I never thought of myself as a storytelling songwriting, but all of a sudden, as a storytelling songwriter.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah.
Storytelling songwriter.
It's your podcast. If you really want us to do that.
Not really.
Okay, so I started going down that road and realized, wow, some of these songs are just kind of coming out of me, which is really cool. And like crazy stories of like characters from the Old West having like shootouts and like robbing the train because, one of my favorite new songs that I'm going to release soon,
Shameless plug moment. Check it out now.
No, I won't. It's on the computer, but you're going to have to wait till it comes out. No, the concept is this guy he works in the mines, and he's just an Old West kind of miner. And he finds out that there's this double jack hammer, which is like a hammer used in mining in them olden times. And I've never been a miner. I've never...
You were once for about 18 years.
I was?
A miner. Well, sorry, 21.
Yeah, it's the U.S., right? Yeah. No, you become an adult at 18. You just can't drink. You can go to prison and you can go to war
and buy a house
and you can drive 2 years earlier than that. Anyway, so the story is he plans to rob this train because he finds out that this special hammer is on the train. So he figures out how to rob the train to get the hammer so that he can, just have that much more like power when he does whatever he's going to do to make whatever kind of living he can make. And the song just kind of tripped out of my mouth, and it's currently one of my favorites that I've done. And so, yeah, I just sort of found my voice in this genre of songwriting and storytelling, which you might say is sort of hillbilly hoedown. I would say when you listen to the stuff I'm releasing now, it actually has more of this bluegrass.
That's definitely what I mean by hillbilly hoedown, just by the way.
No,
Bluegrass.
I know. Bluegrass, but when I produce my records, even though it's just me, I play all the instrumentation, and I have a drummer in Colorado that will record for me remotely. So and then I play a lot of electric guitars. So it's almost like this fusion of Southern rock, right? Like the Allman Brothers, or a more kind of globally known band, Leonard Skinner, right? We can talk about Sweet Home Alabama. Yeah, see, immediately, even though I'm more of the Allman Brothers style in my guitar playing, with bluegrass kind of floating in and out and around in the back. And that's really the style that I'm just enjoying the most and the most comfortable with. And it ties into that sort of 70s Southern rock thing that I'm sort of tapping into. Like the Grateful Dead had a lot of like banjo floating around in the background, not as featured an instrument. Now in bluegrass music, you get a lot of rippers just crushing it on these instruments: fiddle, mandolin, banjo, upright bass. I am not a ripper. I haven't spent my whole life devoted to one instrument. I've spent my whole life devoted to multiples. But to be able to have those instruments very featured, but not playing solos and stuff like that, and leave that to the electric guitars or to other moments, that's where my music has come to. Very different from back in the day with ukuleles and whistles and clapping and
clap, stomp, clap,
stomp, clap. Hey, here's an Apple commercial. So that's, man, that was a freaking long answer. I'm sorry about that. It's a long time I talked.
So your music has been evolving based on what you've been tailoring yourself to, not necessarily like guided by the industry or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Now, how would you say, and this is a bit of the meat that I really want to get into with you, because you've got a very interesting vantage point coming from both sides of this equation. I have found in the South African music scene that a lot of bands, a lot of artists, a lot of venues, events, they inherently and instinctively measure themselves up against the impossible scene in the States. Because we've got a different vibe here. We can't afford to have a band that says, you know what, let's see if we make it and go on tour for the next 6 months of our lives. And, it's okay. Even if we fail, we will still have food to eat and such. The scene in South Africa is so much different, I believe. How would you say in your experience is the scene different from, for an upcoming artist or someone establishing a band or a sound in South Africa versus the States? Okay.
Well, I mean, thank you for explaining that to me. I gotta, be straight up. Like, I learn every day about the true journey of South African artists, and it is different than artists in the States. And I don't want to be the guy that pretends to speak for the South African experience. I've witnessed a lot of things over the years here that I go, that's interesting. And I'm learning from why maybe the budget is so low for an artist, or why an artist feels like, they can't afford to go in and record a record, but they can't go play a show because the venue can't afford to pay them, Let's just be straight up. Being a broke musician is a reality no matter what country you're in.
True. Music
is either highly overvalued or ridiculously undervalued. There really is no in between. Artists are either paid more than makes sense, or less than is possible. But somehow people push through. And here's the difference. I think right in there is the difference in the music industry in the U.S. versus what I've experienced in South Africa that I hope could be a shift in perspective. And that's the collaborative nature. I just mentioned a story earlier where I was part of a group of 3 different artists sitting in a random cabin in Idaho, just playing some chords and writing a song together. And then however many months later, I get a call that I'm getting paid from the show ER because this song that I even forgot I was part of landed somewhere. That's a collaborative effort that paid out. And I think what I've noticed in South Africa, artists aren't prepared or even know how to sit and work together to create something at the risk that it could do nothing. But what they're doing is more than just writing a song or putting on a show together. They're actually building a foundation, a community of support.
Okay.
And that's what makes That's what makes the music industry thrive. Long story short, I think that in the U.S. you really have a sense of support amongst the artists. They promote each other. They sit in with each other. Even if they're not in the same bands together, they will put side projects together. Now, to be fair, there is more money in the American music scene. I don't think we should pretend there's not. There's not as much money put into the South African music scene. But there is, I think, more of the concept that you can control your career as an independent artist in the States than there is here.
Explain.
As an independent artist, I think you have this notion that you don't have to sign to a record deal. You don't have to get someone out there getting your songs on radio to have longevity in a career as a musician. I have, in a lot of the artists here in South Africa I've talked to, they're always thinking about how can I get my song on the radio. It's the only way I can make money. Absolutely true. You can make money getting a song on the radio, but it's not the only way. And you got to get out there and really get to know the other musicians and be inspired by one another and create just a vibrant energy that music is meaningful in the culture. It's never going to make, until you reach this really weird, unknown plateau of like, oh, this is where money is made. You're never, it may never make what you think it should. But I just think there's a sense in the U.S. that like you don't have to sign a record deal. You don't have to have your songs on the radio. You might have to tour a lot. You know, you might have to work your way through playing a lot of music festivals.
Because they have the venues to base it, and that will pay actually for a band, as far as I understand, or people will pay to go and watch an unknown act. How's the culture around that?
Okay, so it depends on where you live, man. I mean, so I lived in L.A., and I've lived in Nashville, and there's just bands, you know, like you wouldn't believe, man, everywhere. They had these rehearsal spaces, so what they would do in L.A., side story, they take these apartment buildings, and basically they're run down, they're dead, and somebody will buy it and turn it into rehearsal studios. We're talking like 20 stories tall, city square blocks, and it's just band after band after band after band in this, imagine, apartment building.
And every apartment is a rehearsal studio.
Every apartment is a rehearsal studio, and you're walking by, and this band's a metal band, and this band is a country band, and this band is a polka band, and then you got another like goth punk reggae band, and it's just, it is, and everything smells like weed and beer, and it's crazy, and it's kind of freaky. It's a little bit like a horror movie.
Do you know how many rehearsal studios there are in Pretoria?
4.
6.
I was close.
Like the 6 that I know of,
yeah.
And I don't think there's many more.
If you are an act and you want to record it, rehearse in my studio, I will charge you a nice rate.
Nice for who?
American. No, I won't go American prices. So, you know, but even in L.A., okay, we want to talk about L.A., you're talking about some pretty high-profile venues, the Roxy, the Troubadour, the Viper Room. These are venues that are world famous, especially for bands like Air Force One. And a lot of them are pay to play. Sometimes you got to pay the venue to actually play, so you can sort of say, I played that venue.
I was thinking about the entire pay-to-play culture the other day, and not to mince words, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like in the entire thing, and
I'll drink to that.
Yes. Because I mean, from the bottom up, in the sense that any venue, like there's a battle of the bands currently happening somewhere in South Africa, so I won't want to flame the guys because they're nice people, but
yeah.
The bands still have to pay to enter to play in a competition, which I think is ridiculous, because the moment that I make money out of you deserve a cut of that money.
Hey,
don't pay me more to come and give me entertainment so I can make more money.
Yeah.
All the way up until the fact that I've heard of this, and to me it was a foreign concept, so I had to Google this, that bands will literally pay to go and open for famous bands.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
States.
That's absolutely true.
Why?
Exposure.
You're idiots.
Well, yeah and no. I mean, if you can get... Usually, opener slots are tricky because if it's a major artist, they're on a label. And usually labels will bring on an opening act that they've recently signed to the label to see how does that act do on stage, how are the songs received, and how do they do on the road. But usually the label doesn't take care of the artist when they got to jump in their van and catch up with the tour buses and get to that next mega stadium, you know, somehow in the same amount of time that the tour bus gets there. It's exhausting, it's rigorous, and It's brutal, but it's exposure. And I think that's the perspective. So, yeah, if you're an indie band trying to get on that, I think it is part of the culture that, or listen, there's a million ways to quote unquote make it as an artist. And if you do 2 of those million ways right, you're lucky, right? So that is one of the things artists do. And if that's the route that it's going to take to get you that exposure, I mean, I guess it's worth it. At the end of the day, being a consistent musician is all about building fans. It's all about building people who are interested in finding out what's the next album you're going to release. What's the next song that I can hear? Where are you playing next? I want to go see you. I want to get your next thing. It's less about how many million listens do I have of this one song. That's awesome if you also have that many fans coming out of it. So a lot of the choices that artists make, even in the US, where you'd think there's lots of money. Yeah, there's lots of money, but there's lots of scenarios where you're still paying out of pocket as an artist to try and do these publicity moments or get in front of people. The whole goal is that you're building fans, because no career can be built without fans. So one of the things that I like about South Africa, actually, I love that, I mean, I've been blown away with the Afrikaans music scene. Fans in the Afrikaans music scene are diehard, and they will just socky their brains out. Or they'll go to festivals, and they're interesting fans to play for. I love them.
Because they've socked their brains out.
Because they've sucked their brains out. But they'll like sit in a chair. They'll be like, I love this artist. I love this artist so much. I'm so excited to be here.
And look all deadpan about it.
And then they're just sitting there, embracing every aspect of the song. And then when the song's over, they freak out, and it's amazing. But like they're absorbing the song.
Yes.
Which is awesome. They're not just like, oh, here's another band. Womp womp, you know. And so I think there is very much the possibility in South Africa to build a fan base out of people to you know, someone said here there's basically the 3 main towns to travel to: Durban, you know, Pretoria, Joburg,
There's no music scene in
Cape
Durban.
Town. Well, but if you're reaching people, you know.
Well, there's a music scene, but I would disagree with those 3 cities. But there's 3 spots in each.
Well, see, that's good. So where do artists go? If there's a triangle or a route that,
In my mind, if you want to break a new artist, you do it in Cape Town.
Yeah.
If you want to be a famous artist for the best, once you're a bit more famous, you come to Pretoria, because Pretoria supports the famous bands better than any other place.
sweet.
And then, depending on who you ask, it's either Joburg or Port. Because
Okay.
Potchefstroom's music scene, noughties, early 2010s, was insane.
Awesome.
And now there's a bunch of cool bands from Joburg, Soweto, and so coming up. So I've always seen the 3, and Durban has always been lagging a bit behind.
Will Durban catch up?
Let's not get into it, because I think Pretoria is even lagging behind at this point in so many places.
It's hard, man. And let's just be honest, the economy has really impacted, you know, the pandemic really impacted venues. A lot of them closed. A lot of them are barely hanging on, so they have such limited budgets, which were limited to begin with.
Which sucks.
And it sucks as an artist. So what do you do as an artist? I think you got to try to figure out how to get yourselves into festivals. And you start being, you know, that first band in the second tent, you know, somewhere in the far festival. But you start to build your fan base that way. And you might not get that much money. You know, you might get enough for you to actually drive there, and that's about it. But that's the case in any country, man.
And maybe you should just some stage accept that you're cuck and no one wants to pay to see you if you don't end up making money after a couple of years.
Well, there's that. I mean,
saying.
Yeah, there are some legit bad bands out there.
I've been, for a couple of years now, saying to a bunch of bands that's, in my mind, if you're an English rock band in South Africa, right? It is stupid of you to limit yourself to South Africa, because the scene is firstly so much smaller. If you want to make money, you go for what's a bigger, more supportive scene. In other words, you start doing hip hop or something, right? Or whatever, electro.
Yeah.
But if you want to make the music that you like, you need to go and and find an audience for yourself. And if you're an upcoming band in South Africa, firstly, you are competing with every international rock band plus the local rock bands. And I just think that you need to broaden your horizons, and rather than trying to be the biggest band in Brakpan, try and go and be one of the smallest bands making it in Belgium or the States, for that matter, or something. Just get your name out there. What would you say is a good way, and even if it is a good idea, for South African bands to start making their name in the States?
Oof. I mean, listen, that's a tough one. I will I will stay in the lane that I'm most familiar with. And that is ultimately, if you, as a South African artist, right, well, first of all, you got to kind of see where your songs might start to take hold. And I heard it said to me once, there is wisdom to this, but I'm not, I have grown unconvinced. Bloom where you're planted, right? There is some wisdom to that, but at the same time, some gardens are better than others.
We've also got the internet now.
Yeah, and we've got the internet now, which is a big deal. But again, remember, it's about making fans. So, the problem for artists from South Africa in getting to a lot of these different countries, one, they're expensive to get to. You got to fly and you got to live in these other countries. And the U.S. ain't cheap. It's not cheap for Americans. You know, Europe is not cheap. It's not cheap for Europeans. I don't know. We're in this world where things are not cheap.
Croatia.
Yeah, well, Croatia's awesome.
Yeah.
Croatia's freaking cool. Maybe I should try and be an artist in Croatia. My wife would be like, yes, let's do that. So getting there is expensive. Staying there is expensive. And of course, listen, you're going to come across visa issues. You're going to come across, you know, all kinds of loopholes. Now, if you can work your way through that, by all means, give it a crack. I mean, the music industry is all about trying stuff, you know, and it may not work.
So what does a band need to do to get an invite to go?
Well, so here's the thing. So back to the lane that I'm talking about. I think one of the important avenues of that will be to work yourself into the universe of licensing your songs for use in film and television and ads. Now, because I've noticed when my songs have been used in ads, and I was talking about how people in Ireland know me, you know, not a lot. I've never had much success with radio. You know, so it's not like people are like, next on the radio, it's Andrew, or, oh, next on the radio, it's Andrew Jed playing a song for you. No, but their grocery store, Tesco, ran one of my songs as their main ad for a long time. You know, and their on hold music, you know, was my, you know, and that's pretty cool. You know, that's awesome. So, and that was in Ireland. So theoretically, I could have pumped a tour there and maybe gotten some more people out than I would have otherwise because my song...
You could have toured all the Tesco's.
I could have toured all the Tesco's. Hey, money's money, bro.
Hey, Tesco's, if you're listening, we've got him touring our road manager.
Hey, that'd be awesome. High five on that. So now, that is a tough world to get into. And that is the one of those where some gardens are better than others, right? So I got into that world because, you know, ultimately I ended up in Los Angeles. You know, Los Angeles is the golden child of Los Angeles is the movie industry, the TV industry. It's also the music industry, but you know, the music industry is kind of like that redheaded stepchild situation of
It's
LA.
the marketing gimmicks.
Yes, but you know, and in fact, one of my big passions is to talk to artists about how to kind of maneuver your way into that scene. Having an agent to represent you is a big deal. It's possible. We're in an era now where micro licensing is really possible. That's where you're on this big catalog and you won't get much money if your song is used, but it will get used. That can create stuff on the back end. Now I won't. Now we lost my session. My song was on there.
No,
Type in my code. No, they'll figure it out. Can't do that. But there are ways to get your songs used. And the idea is if your song, like in Ireland, I always notice a bump in, you know, listens and streams and fans and follows when, even if it's an instrumental song of mine, they take out my vocals and just have the song, is used in an ad or a movie trailer, people will Shazam that, you know, and they'll find out who that is. And there's always a bump. And so if you can... There are ways, and I know it seems daunting and scary, to get your songs into those realms. And that goes a lot further than even a Spotify having a ton of streams on YouTube or whatever. Largely if you can get into the psyche, into that media scene. But it happens here in South Africa too, and it can. And you can work your ways onto shows. And there's a lot of reality TV shows that are filmed here. Reality TV shows never have big budgets, but they air over and over and over
you get paid
again.
every time it does.
You get paid every time it does on the back end.
I've been saying to people that one of the ways that I see that you can make it, or at least start getting your name out, is to get active in local community groups. Not necessarily music community, but also that.
Yeah.
But say, for instance, on Facebook. I mean, in Pretoria, we've got Ek's van die Ooste. I live in Pretoria East groups. I'm from the Moot. I'm from named area here.
Okay.
And people really start engaging there.
Yeah.
And I would say that a South African act saying, you know what, I reckon my music would do good in Idaho. While we're on that, go and find a little local community group, maybe fans of a radio station group, or local sports fans of of a high school or something, or I live in Idaho Southeast Central, whatever. Anywhere where you think they might want to listen to your music, and just start engaging. Because we've got all this, everything that you mentioned, plane tickets, angry agents, double-crossing freaking movie plot lines in your tour, I don't know, can be circumvented by you just sharing your freaking YouTube video to a Facebook group.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Absolutely. I mean, we are in a country where fans are strong. One of the things I love about South Africa is fans really rally around something. So you got to find where your fans are. Groups like that are amazing. In the U.S., the whole concept behind when we used to tour, and to be honest, I think some of those days are behind us. But in terms of like, it's not how it's done anymore. But the idea was like, the U.S. is really big. I don't know if y'all have been, but it's a really big stinking country. South Africa is much smaller. And you would go on tour basically to find out, where is my music making an impact? And then the next tour, you circle back to those specific areas. And you start targeting, oh, this really resonates with the people of Potchefstroom. So I'm going to keep going back. I'm going to keep being a presence there. Oh, I'm a Pretoria artist, but maybe my music is resonating with the Cape Town crowd. Maybe I start focusing my energies, and instead of, trying to bounce around all these different places and make it big everywhere, I focus on a specific, and then you build on that community. You find the Facebook groups. You find the community groups of like-minded interests, and, you really plug in, and you become a name in a very specific way. But you got to kind of hone in on where that area is. Maybe your music is really big in the townships. And, in this particular township over here, they're really into the kind of music you're doing. Keep hitting that, and then make that your plot of land.
So more what I'm understanding what you're saying is, instead of just throwing out a net and hoping for the best and trying to impress everyone in the country with your music, rather be more like a line fisherman, chuck it where it matters. Very specific. Yeah, more targeted.
I mean, I think so. I think so. But that takes a little bit of risk, because you got to get out to those places first, or you got to somehow reach in those places. Also, use your relationships, right? Like in anything. Oh, I've got a lot of friends. Durban might not be the biggest scene right now, but hey, I've got a lot of friends there. Maybe this surfer community is really hip to whatever, so I'm going to keep going down there and surfing and talking about my music. I mean, there's more to Durban than just surfing, dare I say, although for me, I love surfing.
No, definitely. I just think that, it's sad that there's not a bigger live music scene there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I think live music scenes are always going to come and go. Honestly, I think festivals are kind of where it's at. But live music scenes are always going to come and go. One moment, this town is going to be really happening and stuff. Seattle in the grunge era. When the next moment, this town is really happening. But that all comes from artists, figuring out where the vibe is. And so you find out where your vibe is, and you keep plugging away at that, and that will kind of create a seismic growth for you.
Now, speaking of finding where your vibe is at, right, I mean, look, you are going to perform your music, you're going to play your music, you're going to do what you do to get where you want to be. And then you're going to start a band or join a band called Air Force One. How's that for a segue?
Yeah, so I'll drink to that segue.
I'll help you drink to that.
All right,
Cheers.
good. Air Force One. Let me get my wig out of the
Let's spend 5 minutes on Air Force One.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Air Force One, obviously a play on words when it comes to Air Force One, the official plane of El Presidente.
El Presidente Extraordinaire. Yes, of the U.S. Air Force One.
Air Force One, and you being Hair Force One because you do hair metal and glam rock type covers and stuff.
Yeah.
Just quickly, explain to me what is the essence of the band, and if I'm not mistaken, you are literally the only non-politician-y type of... What was the deal? No, wait, everyone in the band works at the embassy, am I right?
Oh, yeah, so basically the U.S. has an embassy community here in South Africa, and I got to know these guys, and they all have sort of different... They're all fantastic musicians, but their life journey hasn't brought them into the professional musician world, but good enough to be. and love playing music. And I do all kinds of different things. And so one of the guys who's a guitar player, he's just super passionate, super good at playing like Van Halen style 80s guitar, crushing it, all the like crazy guitar tricks, Guns N' Roses, you know. And he was like, I want to put together this band. You know, there's a band in LA called Steel Panther.
I love Steel Panther.
Yeah, so, and then you guys have LA Cobra, and they're amazing. I love those guys. Shout out to LA Cobra. Those guys rock.
And if you like that stuff, check out Jackson Colt as well.
Okay. Yeah. See, this is what you got to do. You got to tell people to like bands. Hair Force One is just a fun outlet for us, but it's more than just like, oh, you know, we're going to be cute and play songs from the 80s. Like, this is full on, and I didn't actually, be honest, I didn't really catch the vision until we pulled out the wigs and the spandex pants.
Yeah, because it is a production. Don't get me wrong. It's not just, you know, we're going to cover some of your favorite 80s songs in the local bar.
No.
It is, an hour and a half long production.
We'll play for 3 hours, whatever. I mean, there's enough material from the hair metal, glam, Sunset Strip, 80s, you know, experience that we do it. The goal is to bring an audience there. It's not just to be like, oh, let's play this cool Guns N' Roses song, but it's like, no, what if you were like at a Guns N' Roses show?
Yes.
You know, and to watch the way the band struts around stage and like sometimes hates each other, you know, fights for the moment, you know, and like there's something goes wrong. We even have a pretend roadie that'll come out and like
I met your pretend roadie.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, super cool. I'm thinking actually this is roadie tape, which is on my hat, and it's just so fun. But the other goal is it's got to sound good, man. It's got to sound good. It's got to be performed well. You know, we want to do justice to these songs, which are actually really, really.
And you do justice, just by the way, in the sense that it is a fun experience to watch you play.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that you're a tribute act. It's not like I'm going to watch Guns N' Roses or, for that matter, a bunch of people dressed like Guns N' Roses and then watch 17 Guns N' Roses songs.
No,
it is a best of compilation of the best of.
Yeah. And you're like, with wigs and spandex and attitude.
You just dress the stereotype, basically.
It's all stereotype. It's all experience. So I think Hair Force One, consider it, which is like the best name ever. How could you
Absolutely.
not? Like, Hair Force One says it all. And there are a few Hair Force Ones out there, but, you know, we're the best. What?
In South Africa.
We're the best. I don't think there's any in South Africa.
Exactly. Well, there's one.
But the vision of Hair Force One, maybe one of these days we all leave and Hair Force One can be carried on. The spirit of Hair Force One can you just have to be willing
in the U.S. Embassy community.
Yeah, we've actually had South African players sit in with us, and you know, you're like I play bass in the band, and I'm like posing, you know, like you gotta like play the bass behind your head and stuff. Like that's the rule to be in the band. You have to be outrageous on stage in that 80s music video kind of way, and that's what it's about. It's about recreating that super fun, audacious glam rock period, which was just over the top, absolutely over the top. MTV, you know, poses and stances and the super cheesy
and still a rock and roll lifestyle.
You know, we have the flasks that we're drinking from. Granted, there's water in there, but you know. So
and then at the end of the night, you go home to your hotel room and smash all the TVs.
We break everything.
Except that your wife would kill you if you rock up at home and smash all the TVs.
Yeah, because we spent good money for those. So, but it's really fun, and I do hope if you're listening, and if you please come out to a Hair Force One show.
Absolutely, you have to. Book them for a corporate, like no jokes. Anytime that you put rock and roll up for a corporate, people don't like it. Put wigs and makeup and do some spandex thing.
People will lose their minds.
It is a show.
People actually dress up for our shows too, so it's also that element of come dressed up, come in 80s glam attire. Who doesn't want to do that? You know, it's about as over the top and bonkers. You know, here, I check this out.
Oh, yes.
So this is,
For those of you that are listening and not watching, this might be a very good moment to just quickly switch over.
So I play bass in the band, but our guitar player, actually, Sean, he builds guitars. And so we built this, what would be called a super strat, and it's sort of modeled after the guitar player from Def Leppard. And it's just kind of, it's this crazy here, there's like a headstock, and I wanted sort of this California look, but he's got all these that he builds, and they're all like tricked out and super shreddy, and you know, does, you know, crazy cool things. And it's just all about look and vibe and crazy energy.
You literally just summed up the entire air metal scene.
There you go.
It's look, vibe, and crazy
Look,
energy.
vibe, and crazy.
Now, having spoken to you now, honestly, firstly, delightful. We've been aiming to get together at your place for quite some time.
Absolutely a nice delight.
All it took was about 3 years in a podcast.
There you go.
Singer, songwriter, licensing expert apparently.
Which, by the way, I do need to give a big thank you. I wouldn't be if it weren't for the agents and the pitching agents who have helped me over the years. And
He's humble too.
No. But I'm serious. Like it's relationships.
Absolutely.
You know, it's about friends and people that have come across over the years that have said, hey, you know, you should talk to this person about this, and then that person about that. So I wouldn't know or have any of the successes without other people. Anyway, carry on.
Absolutely. So the point is, you've been into the scene in the States, in South Africa, in quite a few different capacities.
Mm-hmm.
But your influences, I mean, walking into your house, it is clear that you love music.
Yeah.
I mean, it is quite sad sometimes, and I'm not even going to ask you for a comment on this, just dropping it. When you see someone promote themselves on Instagram as a musician, but you have to scroll down 17 swipes before you see them playing music. You're an Insta whore. You're not a musician. Anyway.
I'm not an Insta whore. I don't know how to use the thing. Anyway, carry on.
But walking into your house, as I said, you see that you love music. You've got quite the extensive vinyl collection. You've got memorabilia. You've got multiple spaces in your home dedicated to music. Mostly wherever you go, the music is.
Beautiful.
But in closing to this podcast, I want you to do is in 30 seconds, and this is the challenge. 30 seconds each. I want to know the 3 vinyls that you are the most happy about owning. The 3 that excite you the most.
Okay. Ready?
And wait for it. I'll get a timer on the clock. And 30 seconds each. And number 1 is?
Number 1. Okay, so right now, actually, Into the Wild, which is the soundtrack for this great movie that Sean Penn did, music done by Eddie Vedder. For one reason, because I love this music. Eddie Vedder inspired me to be a musician. Pearl Jam changed my life. The songs are folky and strong and brittle and brilliant. I really like the story of Chris McCandless, this dude who went up into Alaska, ultimately died in a bus, and why he did that. And the music on this is amazing. Plus, the vinyl foldouts are beautiful shots.
And your second album.
All right, so now we've got Allman Brothers, Wipe the Windows, Check the Oil. It's a collection of a lot of their live stuff. Allman Brothers are just a super fun band that came out of Muscle Shoals music scene as session players.
What do you like about their music most?
I just like the feel-good, jammy vibe. Jam bands take music and they go to places that are fun and make you feel joyous, and you're with them on this journey as they play music on stage. They're one of the best. And then they cut into these great blues tunes that are just happy and feel great.
Fantastic. And your third album.
All right, which might be my Desert Island album, actually. It's Bob Dylan's soundtrack to Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. Now, it's kind of not fair that I did 2 soundtracks, but I didn't understand Bob Dylan for a lot of years. And then I discovered, in listening to Bob Dylan, that Bob Dylan lets the song dictate what it wants to be, as opposed to him forcing the song. So you listen to a lot of Bob Dylan albums, they change over time. Bob Dylan lets the song be the song, and he just follows its lead. This one particular record, though, has this sort of obviously Western flair to it. Some bluegrass in there, some great songwriting. It's actually Where We Get Knocking on Heaven's Door is from that album. And it's just a beautiful record top to bottom. It's a movie score, but it's also proper Dylan, but he doesn't sing on every song. I love it.
And that is why it's important to talk to musicians about music they love, because you get to know more about a musician by listening to what they like than by asking them all the questions in the world of what's your favorite cereal and what do you see yourself as in 10 years.
Grape Nuts is my favorite cereal.
And where do you see yourself in 10 years? With a bunch of grape
With
nuts.
a bunch of grape nuts.
Listen, dude, Andrew, it was so much fun talking to you.
Dude,
I'm looking forward to the next time already.
Yes.
And if anyone wants to hit you up, I mean, just click the links in the video or the podcast below. I will put your website there.
And there's some, I'm honestly, like right behind me here on the, now it's a floating thing, is my new record that I'm working on, and I plan to, in the new year, release a song a month, as opposed to a full-length record. But all the songs, it's as if they'd exist on the same record. So it might be a lot more concise. But just to see what happens then, if I release a song a month, but they're all connected. Anyway.
I support that, just by the way, fully.
I'm so excited about what's coming So please pay attention to that. And hopefully you dig it too, and you dig what I'm doing. And if any of you want to reach through my socials and find out more about kind of this universe that I've been in, licensing songs, film and TV, how to sort of think about that in a new capacity, please do.
Fantastic. There you've got it. Thank you so very much for listening to the Baascast. Thanks for being on the Baascast.
Yeah.
And if your mom accidentally walked in while you were watching us, I deeply apologize. It won't happen again.
Hi, Mom.
Jammer Tani. Anyway, guys, have a good one. Remember to go and click things like share, buttons, stuffies, and make us feel good about ourselves. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to this Baascast, and thank you so much Audio Torch for sponsoring the camera gear.